Bodyweight chest flies without gymnastics rings. Here they are, easy peasy.
Dad, stop making the same dumb joke.
Okay, I get what you mean, but this time it's not really a joke. Just imagine you're in a jungle camp and have only lianas to train with. But never mind, I've also 2 alternatives in stock that don't need any suspension, and neither will I keep you in suspense about it any longer. The first alternative to ring chest flies is the closed kinetic chain floor chest flies. It mimics the rings version in the bottom position and the first few centimeters above it, which is basically the only part of the movement that's really challenging. Of course, you might argue that the boring part can also have its use. Especially at the top, you can give your pecs a good squeeze for the peak contraction. It's true, the small range of motion of the floor version isn't optimal, but in exchange for that, you're getting 2 clear advantages. The first one is the universal applicability, which Coach Butler would probably call a gigabrain way of saying you can do it everywhere without any equipment. Personally, I like to elevate my feet, but you don't have to. And the yoga mat doesn't really have a purpose here either, so let's get rid of it. You may prefer to call this exercise ultra-wide push-ups because of the elbow extension, but come to think of it, elbow extension is also a part of any usual fly movement, unless you keep your elbows completely locked out in the first place, which in my opinion isn't recommendable. Anyway, the closed kinetic chain floor chest flies also allow you to keep your elbows slightly bent the whole time and just concentrate on the scapular movement in the utmost bottom position. It's the same as in the rings version, for which I've described it like this. Your hands stay put while you're initiating the movement by protracting your scapulae. Here's a montage of me doing just that, protracting and retracting my scapulae, without changing the angle in my elbows. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this though. The range of motion is really small anyway, and in my experience, straightening out your arms just feels more satisfying. The second big advantage compared to the rings version is kind of a recurring theme in my videos. It applies to this one as well as the other alternative to ring chest flies I'm gonna show you in a minute. Of course, I'm talking about the increased safety and decreased fear factor respectively. It's kind of like squats versus deadlifts. If you start from the ground, you eliminate any risk of accidentally going deeper than your muscles or joints can handle. With gymnastics rings, even if you hang them as low as possible, there will still be space underneath your head and chest in the bottom position. Because in the course of the movement, rings swing out like a pendulum, so they end up somewhat higher than their starting position. They also have a tendency to swing out even farther as long as your arms aren't completely outstretched yet. This doesn't only feel daring, it actually bears some risk of injury. In contrast, the floor version allows you to deliberately choose what the deepest point of the movement will feel like during the whole set, unless you change it intentionally by spanning a closer or wider distance with your arms. That way you can perform mechanical drop sets, for example. But no matter where you put your hands, they will stay there, anchoring a securely closed kinetic chain that provides extra stability. Here's a little trick how to avoid the dead start and get into the top position a little easier. Lay down completely flatly on the floor, with your arms outstretched at a 90-degree angle to your torso. Whether your feet are elevated or on the ground is of no consequence here. Now raise your head and chest with your spinal erectors, just like in a cobra pose, but only until your whole sternum has left the ground. Retract your scapulae, but leave your arms fully extended. Now firmly press your palms against the floor, tighten your frontal core muscles, flare your shoulder blades again, i.e. protract your scapulae, and thus lift your hips and whole upper body into a wide grip plank position while keeping a neutral spine. In order to make it a little easier, you may slightly bend your elbows and bring your hands somewhat closer together. From that position, perform the actual movement by lowering your chest and forehead to the ground, slightly bending your elbows and retracting your scapulae. Then lift yourself up again by protracting your scapulae and extending your elbows. The core has to stay tight and the hips have to remain in the air during the whole set. Inhale on the way down, exhale on the way up. As a progression toward this exercise, you can also perform the getting into the starting position movement for repetitions. Keep isometric tension in your raised shoulder girdle while you're moving just your hips up and down dynamically, like me in this montage. Yes, full disclaimer, I forgot to actually film this, so I took the only rep I did at the start of the regular exercise and had it play seamlessly backwards and forwards 10 times. Now what if you're thinking, that's all well and good, but I still would prefer a greater range of motion? Say no more. Here comes the second alternative to ring chest flies. I call it the dumbbells-and-band floor chest flies. It is particularly suitable for athletes who would be advanced enough to perform the original exercise, but for some reason don't have gymnastics rings at their disposal. As you can see, this variation requires at least one relatively strong resistance band and a pair of plate-loaded dumbbells. Use smaller plates for less rolling friction. If you're training on a wooden floor, make sure to keep it protected from denting and scratching. A yoga mat is great for that purpose, but I guess a rug would also do the job. Don't underestimate the necessary strength of the resistance band, even if you have already done 3 unassisted ring flies. Because with rings hanging in thin air, the only resistance you have to overcome is your body weight pulling you down. Without any force pushing them outward, the rings would even swing back to the center on their own. Whereas it takes a considerably higher amount of strength to overcome the adhesion and rolling friction of the dumbbells, additionally to lifting your body weight with your outstretched arms. As you may notice, this exercise hasn't gone through a long and thorough testing phase yet. Rather, I'm presenting it to you almost off the bat. This is also the reason why for most reps I skipped the top part of the movement. I was too fascinated by the unique combination of forces in the bottom part, and therefore wanted to get a feeling of them. My body weight pushing the dumbbells out, my pecs and the resistance band trying to pull them back in, and the adhesion and friction respectively trying to hold them in place. I definitely didn't skip the upper third because it was boring. Quite on the contrary, as soon as the resistance band becomes slack, all of a sudden the top part of the movement becomes pretty challenging again. So don't let yourself get misled by my bad example. Instead, perform the exercise over the full range of motion, which I only did for these 2 reps here, unfortunately. So what if you actually do have gymnastics rings? Should you still try out this bodyweight fly variation too? Well, of course you can. Maybe you feel safer when you're closer to the floor, but that's pretty much the only argument I can make for the use of my invention here. For a better, more direct progression toward ring flies, just take the resistance band and link the rings with it, like it has been demonstrated in a lot of other videos already. Now, if you're still here, thank you so much for your support. I really hope I've shown you something interesting and new. If you think so, please share this video with as many people as possible. I also wouldn't mind a thumbs up, a comment, and if you're new to my channel, a subscription with the notifications turned on. Thanks again for your ongoing support. My name is Florian, and I will continue to make an effort so that you don't get bored with your training.